Hey guys, Michelle here, Michelle Beckner Family Wellness, coming to you from my messy office slash guest room with my little Ziggy and messy baby clothes. Today we're going to be talking about every single thing you need to know, all the steps to take to reintroduce dairy into your baby's diet slash your diet. But before I talk about that, if you have just gone dairy-free, then make sure to go back and look at some of my old videos, especially my Happy Mama Healthy Baby live show, episode 28, I believe, where I talk about the first steps to take when cutting dairy out of your diet. So let's get started. First thing that's important to know is it's really, really, really important to have zero dairy in your diet, whether it's like straight up dairy like cheese or yogurt, or hidden dairy in different foods. It's really, really important to not have any of that in your diet or your baby's diet for at least 6 to 9 months after cutting dairy. So the reason why, especially if your baby had bloody poops or mucousy poops, that's a sign of major intestinal distress. So you want to give your baby's intestines time to heal. But even if they had rashes or eczema or anything, it's the same deal. You need their body needs time to heal and kind of like reset, so they're not going to go and attack these dairy proteins when the baby eats them again. So what I like to say is, in the first like 4 to 6 weeks or so, when you first start cutting out dairy, if you have a slip up, which happens, either you ate something like you forgot, like you ordered a regular latte just because that's what you're used to ordering, or if you ate out at a restaurant and it seems like maybe there was something in there that didn't agree with baby, or if you just ate something and then realized later that there was hidden dairy in it. Whatever, slip ups happen, right? So if that happens in the first like 4 to 6 weeks, I would start the countdown over. If it happens, like if you've been dairy free for a while, and you have a slip up, then, just move on, and like keep going with that 6 to 9 months. Like if you're 4 or 5 months in a dairy free and you have a slip up, you don't need to start all over again, unless you want to. I mean, it's not going to hurt, right? So yeah, you just really, really want your baby to have time to heal before you start reintroducing it. And that's most important because that will make them more likely to grow out of their allergy as they get older. So most babies grow out of their allergies by about 2 years. When I say allergy, I say like any kind of food sensitivity, intolerance, allergy, whatever. Unless it's like a life-threatening anaphylactic type allergy, that's kind of a different ballgame. In that case, you are, I'm sure, working with pediatrician, allergists, stuff like that. So don't just listen to me. Listen to the doctors if your baby's got life-threatening allergies. Your baby is more likely to grow out of it as they get older, the longer their body has to kind of heal and reset from it. So I know that's like part of my motivation when I go dairy-free is just knowing that like the better I do this and the longer I do this, the more likely my baby is to be able to eat like normal food. So we still eat very minimal dairy, but at least we don't have to worry about not being able to have dairy when we go out or when we're just in the mood for pizza or whatever, right? So it's really important to do those 6 to 9 months dairy-free, you and your baby, so that they can heal, and then it makes them a little bit, hopefully, more likely to grow out of their allergy by their first birthday or hopefully their second birthday. So how to do it. There's 2 ways of thinking about this. One is you eat dairy yourself, because then the baby's only exposed to it a little bit because it kind of, gets processed through your body and your breast milk, or give it directly to the baby, which seems a little bit scary, right? Because so by those 6 to 9 months, your baby is most likely at least like trying or playing with solid foods, right? But really, I would recommend giving it to your baby. Again, if it's a life-threatening type allergy, don't just go ahead and give it to them because I told you to. Go see your allergist and they'll tell you about reintroducing. But otherwise, it's best to give it to your baby, and here's why. If you eat dairy, it's in your breast milk, and it's going to be in your breast milk for a couple days, a day or 2 at least. So that means your baby's not going to be exposed to it just that one time when you eat it, but they're going to be exposed to it every single time they nurse until all of the dairy is out of your system. So that's really not the best, right? Especially if your baby has a reaction where they're screaming and unhappy and uncomfortable, because then that sucks for you too. So you want to introduce it to baby first. How do you introduce it to baby? The best way to do it is by going through the dairy ladder, which you can Google. I don't pay too close attention to it. I kind of like to just, I don't know, make things a little bit easier and intuitive, but the idea of it is still the same thing. So you want to start with baked dairy, because when the dairy is baked, the proteins, which is what the babies have hard time with, they get kind of broken down a little bit when they're baked at high temperature. And then the dairy ladder goes all the way up through like cheese and I guess yogurt and milk, like raw, not raw dairy, but like straight up dairy, right? So start with baked dairy. The only issue is that is like, please don't start with baked dairy in the form of like cookies and cakes and donuts and things like that. Our babies do not need to be eating sugar. So I'd rather you just like stay off dairy if you're going to start feeding your baby sugar. So baked goods, at least make them at home so you can adjust the amount of sugar in them, or use a little bit healthier, low fructose or no fructose sweeteners. But yeah, any kind of baked dairy. You can even do like savory breads, like with cheese in them or whatever. And then the next step would be like melted cheese or grilled cheese or pizza or something like that. But yeah, start with baked dairy. Keep an eye out for any symptoms like abdominal digestive discomfort, rashes, eczema, like whatever your baby had when you first found out about their dairy allergy will most likely be what they have if they are still reacting, but it's not necessarily the case. So keep an eye out for any of those kind of symptoms. If they do have them, then you know they still have an issue with dairy, right? So you want to cut it out for at least another 4 months. Another 6 to 9 months would be ideal before you try again. And symptoms can show up anywhere from like 12 hours later to 3 or 4 days later. So just do the one test where you feed it to baby directly and then wait a few days before you think everything's fine and you want to move forward. Okay, so to recap, you want to wait 6 to 9 months with hopefully 0 or very minimal slip-ups before reintroducing dairy. The best way to do it is to reintroduce dairy to your baby directly in the form of some kind of baked dairy that is 0 or very, very minimal sugar, because we want our kids to be happy and healthy, and sugar does not do that for them. So you want to introduce it to them instead of you, to keep your breast milk clean. Look for any of the common reactions. They can show up 10, sure, whatever. They can show up 12 hours to 3 to 4 days later. So take it slow. If they do show up, then you're going to want to keep with the dairy free for at least another 4 months, hopefully more like another 6 to 9 months before you reintroduce it. If they do okay, then work your way up that dairy ladder. So from baked dairy, you can go to melted cheese, things like that. I want to leave you guys with, there's nothing wrong with being dairy free for the rest of your life, even if you and your baby do okay with dairy. Excuse me. It'll make your life a little bit easier when you go to friends' houses or out to restaurants, or when you're just like really in the mood for some pizza or whatever. But it doesn't mean you need to go full-blown dairy, because obviously your baby had some sort of issue with it. I can go on for a while about how it's not the best thing for anyone to really eat. But I've heard before, and I truly believe that your baby never really grows out of their allergy. There's still some sort of immune response, inflammation in their body when they eat dairy. So I've noticed it on my daughter, who's 3, almost 3. She had a dairy allergy her first year of life. She grew out of it, but we eat, minimum dairy in this house. Pretty much the only form of dairy she eats is cheese. But I notice if she's eating a lot of cheese or a lot of dairy, she gets those little bumps on her arms. So even though she seems to do fine with it, if she has a lot, she does get some symptoms from it. So if there's anything that you guys can take away from this, is, I really hope that your baby does grow out of their dairy allergy and that these steps help you reintroduce it into their diet. But it doesn't mean you should or you can go crazy and just like go back to, the way you were or whatever. It doesn't mean that you can start giving them whole milk all the time and cheese and all these dairy products. You're still going to want to be mindful of it. You're still going to want to be mindful of it for the remainder of their lives. And hopefully you've noticed a difference in your health when you've cut dairy and you're just kind of a new dairy light family. So if you want more tips about going dairy free or being a happy mama, subscribe to my YouTube channel and I'll be here with anything you need. All right.